I worked as a janitor in my own company. Ethan Mensah had built his company from a tiny wooden desk in a rented room. What began as a single idea had grown into a towering glass building filled with over 300 employees. Outside, people whispered his name with admiration. Inside, his workers only saw him in polished shoes, tailored suits, and cars that cost more than their yearly salary. But one evening, after overhearing two executives mock a cleaner for smelling like poverty, Ethan felt something twist painfully inside his chest. Their laughter echoed long after they left. He couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking of his mother, who once scrubbed floors so he could have schoolbooks. He wondered what she would think if she heard the things happening in the company that carried her name. The next morning, he walked into a small supply closet with a backpack and a simple uniform. He rolled up his expensive shirt and replaced them with old trousers and a faded blue overall. When he tied the janitor's belt around his waist, even the mirror didn't recognize him. He took a deep breath and stepped into his own company through the back door, unnoticed, unseen, and unnamed. He introduced himself as Kwesi, a new part-timer. The supervisor glanced at him briefly, scribbled something on a sheet, and handed him a mop. No handshake. No welcome. No warmth. It stunned him. He had spent years preaching community and care, yet his workers treated newcomers like shadows. His first hours were humbling. Employees walked past him as if he didn't exist. Some dropped trash carelessly, expecting him to pick it up. Others spoke loudly about how cleaners didn't understand real work. He felt invisible and ashamed that this culture had grown under his leadership. But the longer he stayed, the more he discovered what the glossy reports and polished presentations never revealed. He met Abina, an elderly cleaner who wore joy like a crown despite earning barely enough to survive. She told him she worked 2 jobs and had a daughter in nursing school. When he asked if she ever rested, she smiled faintly and said, "Rest can wait. My child's future cannot." He met Jacob, a shy young cleaner who always ate alone. His coworkers mocked his stutter. Yet every time Ethan looked his way, Jacob straightened up as if holding a secret pride. Later, Ethan learned that Jacob sent half his salary to his grandmother in the village. He met Rosa, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes who cleaned the executive floor. Every evening, she hid leftover sandwiches in her bag, not for herself, but for her 2 sons at home. She worked silently, never complaining, even when executives scolded her for being too slow. Every story carved a deeper wound in Ethan's heart. These people were the backbone of the company, and yet they were treated like disposable shadows. One night, as he scrubbed the conference room floor, he overheard 2 junior managers laughing about a rumor that the company planned to cut the cleaners' bonuses to increase profit margins. Ethan's jaw tightened. He couldn't stay silent any longer. His disguise had served its purpose. On Friday morning, the entire staff received a message. All employees must report to the main hall for an important announcement. When they gathered, they saw Kwesi, the quiet janitor, walking up the stage. Whispers filled the air. Confusion. Curiosity. Even laughter. Then, in one fluid motion, Ethan removed the janitor's overall and stood there in his crisp white shirt. Gasps filled the room like a wave hitting the shore. The managers who had mocked cleaners turned pale. The workers who ignored him lowered their heads. But it was the cleaners who stood frozen, wide-eyed, unsure of what was happening. Ethan spoke calmly, but his voice carried the weight of everything he had witnessed. I founded this company with the belief that every person here deserves dignity, he began. But what I saw this week broke my heart. Some of you treat the people who clean your mess as if they are less human than you. You've forgotten that success is built not only by those who sit at desks, but also by those who sweep the floors. Silence fell heavy across the hall. He turned to Abina, to Jacob, to Rosa. These people are the reason this company functions. Their stories, their sacrifices, their hard work, they deserve recognition, not disrespect. Then he announced sweeping changes, full health insurance for all support staff, meal allowances, salary increases, mental health support, and scholarships for their children. The cleaners burst into tears. Employees who had never noticed them before now clapped with genuine respect. But the biggest surprise came at the end. Ethan named Abina as the new head of staff welfare, Jacob as a company-sponsored student in speech therapy school, and Rosa as the official supervisor of the executive floors with triple her former pay. When the meeting ended, Abina approached him with trembling hands and said, "Why did you do this? You're the CEO." Ethan smiled softly. "Because before I wore a suit, I was the son of a woman who washed floors. And I promised myself I would never forget people like her." Word of what he did spread far beyond the company walls. Headlines called him the CEO who became a janitor to understand humanity. Employees worked harder, treated each other better, and the company's culture transformed into one of empathy and unity. Ethan kept the janitor uniform in his office, not as a joke, but as a reminder. Whenever he felt himself drifting too far from humility, he would touch the worn fabric and remember the week that changed everything. In the end, the richest thing he gained wasn't profit or public praise. It was the understanding that true leadership starts on the ground, not at the top, and that humility is the greatest power a leader can ever hold.